What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Howard Bender. Welcome into the Fantasy NFL DFS show. Week 13 is upon us here, Howard. We got 10 games on this week's main slate. Good sir, how are we doing?
I'm doing okay. You know what? 6 teams on a bye this week. Definitely going to make it a little crazy for us. But listen, I think that on the DFS front, I think it's great. It's like, give me a 10-game slate here. Don't have to, overinvest. We got a lot of good primetime teams, who are going to come off the board for us. Like, we don't have to worry about any Dallas Cowboys, right? We don't have to worry about DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. We don't have to worry about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. We don't even have to worry about the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley. So right. I feel good about this slate. I like it a lot. I'm ready to dive in when you are.
Yeah, we got some interesting game totals here. Some good, some bad. That we'll certainly find ourselves into. Atlanta, New York, for instance, is at a 34 game total, while Miami and Washington is sitting at a 49.5. So we have a wide variety of games that we can certainly go to look to target, and some other games that we can sort of look to fade when it comes to even shrinking down our player pools a little bit more there. Let's get into that DraftKings slate, though, like we're talking about here. We go position by position for those of you who are new, and if you haven't already, toss a like down on today's show. Please do so. Certainly helps us out with that YouTube algorithm. If you haven't subscribed already, I don't know what you're waiting for there either. We got shows all week long here. At the quarterback position, I do the quarterback coach. You can find that live over on Fantasy Alarm right now. Cover of this week's quarterback coach is none other than Tua Tagovailoa. Has that 49.5 game total against the Washington Commanders. Howard, I have him as the cover photo. I strongly believe that he's in for a great matchup here against the Commanders, given how poorly their defense is. They fired their defensive coordinator. They fired their defensive coach back. But I got to ask you how big of a believer you are in home road splits, because this season on the road, Tua's numbers are drastically different than they are when he's playing in Miami. He's averaging almost 10 fantasy points less on the road than he is at home. Is that something that you're worried about, or is it the Commanders? So, you just throw those stats out the way.
Listen, I think that you can go for it. I'm not gonna lock Tua in as a cash game QB for me, only because we may get Devon Achane back. I don't know if we are, but you still have Raheem Mostert. You still have a heavy ground game. You also have a banged up Tyreek Hill. Now I know that I don't take missed Wednesday's practice to anything, because that's a standard veteran day, right, for rest and no practice. But when you look at this and you say, all right, is this a team that we have to throttle like we usually do? Do we need to run up the score here, or can we just get away with it? Kind of like with the Raiders, right? The other week we thought that there was like a complete smash spot for the Miami Dolphins, and the Raiders defense is terrible. And that was a home game for them. Yep. And they really didn't turn it out as much as they did. So I worry about the fact of, whether or not, they're going to really run up the score that much, and if there's going to be a lot of groundwork. I talked to Jim Bowden about this game on Wednesday's Fantasy Alarm show. And he kind of put it at like a potential like 38-20 or 42-20 type of a game, which would be great for Tua if it's the passing work that gets those points.
Right. And listen, to me, it's more so, again, attacking the secondary, which has been their biggest weakness. Now, they lost 2 of their best pass rushers, but their interior defensive line kind of stayed intact here. But you're right. We could get Devon Achane back. Raheem Mostert obviously has been running the ball really well. I'm interested to see what happens. I guess Jeff Wilson would still be active because Ahmed went on IR because Jeff Wilson was a scratch. He was not healthy and active when Achane came back 2 weeks ago. They kind of limited the workload there against the Raiders, like you're pointing out. Tua still threw for 325 and 2 scores. I'd be happy if that's the production we get out of him in this matchup. Being under $8,000, but we know what the ceiling can be going against the Washington Commanders. In the other side of that game, just kind of jumping around quickly because I want to highlight the 49 game total. We have Sam Howell, who every single week I go out here and I tell you that you should be playing Sam Howell in DFS because it does not matter how good he is as being an actual quarterback. They lost 45-10 in that game against Dallas. He came out with 21 fantasy points because he threw the ball 44 times for 300 yards. The rushing touchdown has helped. Back-to-back weeks with a rushing touchdown here. Volume is king. And as I wrote in the quarterback coach here, Howard, on this main slate, Sam Howell is averaging the 4th most fantasy points per game at the quarterback position. Yet on DraftKings, he's the 7th highest priced quarterback, and on FanDuel, he's the 8th highest priced quarterback. So both quarterbacks in this game, I think you can throw against Miami here a little bit as well. We know they're going to throw regardless. I like stacking both sides of this one here if I'm playing some lineups this week.
Yeah, I definitely do. And I like your Sam Howell call here because, again, like we said, Miami's giving up points. They're giving up at least 21 points per game over their last 4 or 5 weeks. So, when we look and see what we want for our narrative, you want somebody who's throwing, and Sam Howell is always throwing. And Miami's, their secondary, they struggle against wide receiver ones. We've seen that happen. And we all know how much Sam Howell loves, hitting Curtis Samuel, working out of the slot. So, I mean, I love a Commander's stack with Samuel and McLaurin. And then, coming back against that is Raheem Mostert as the lead back in that offense. So I love the Sam Howell call. Definitely think that it's worth a look.
Next game, I think that most people are going to be looking to target here. Again, just sort of going game stacks of quarterbacks here. CJ Stroud is $8,100. He's the 2nd highest priced quarterback on the slate. Denver's obviously looked a little bit better over the last few weeks. They're riding that winning streak here. But Stroud honestly continues to perform. He continues to perform at home. Yeah, they lost that game against Jacksonville, but another 3 total touchdowns for him, 304 yards, completing 72% of his passes there. 33 fantasy points. I mean, it's very difficult to go away from him. Now, his wide receivers continue to get more expensive as he continues to get more expensive. So the stack for Stroud becomes a little bit more difficult as we continue to move on with his success here. But looking at Denver in this matchup against Houston here, again, we're looking at a game with a total sitting currently at, now I lost my place, 47.5, open at 46. How are we feeling about Stroud this week against Denver? And then flip side of that matchup, Russell Wilson is very cheap this week. He's $5,700 coming in on the opposite side of that one.
It's kind of funny here because I was talking about this game on the Better Sports betting show. And here's some things that people don't really pay attention to that much. This is the 3rd straight home game for the Houston Texans. Yeah. All right. So not only have they not had to get on a plane for 3 weeks right now, but they did it all bookending the Thanksgiving holiday. So they got family and friends and, all the stuff that they did, charity wise, that they were, hanging out in soup kitchens and feeding the homeless and feeding the hungry and everything else that NFL teams do during that time. There's something to be said for being able to sleep in your own bed for the last 3 weeks, travel weary teams, practicing in other facilities that aren't your own, living in a hotel the entire time. Like that's something that you kind of have to, pay attention to. And, there's so much hype on Denver right now. I love Denver. I really do. Don't get me wrong. I think what they're doing right now is fantastic. And I love me some Courtland Sutton.
I have a feeling Courtland Sutton will be in a lineup that you make here at some point today. So
you think that might be the case, but maybe not. We'll see. We'll see because I kind of feel like, that this is a game that I think people are just expecting, everything's coming up Denver right now. That I feel like the 3.5 point spread for the Texans at home, I'm in on that, So, I look at that and I say yes to Stroud. I definitely love him. pair him up with Nico Collins. Everybody's going to pair him up with Tank Dell. Everybody's going to always pair him up with Tank Dell. But think about it. Last week, what happened? Collins had 100 yards. Tank Dell had 50. They both got into the end zone, but everybody was in on Tank Dell, and he was the lesser receiver in that matchup. We talked about that. I even had it in the playbook that Nico Collins, yes, you got to look at Tank Dell because everybody's in on him. And I said, Tank Dell for cash games, Nico Collins for GPP tournaments.
Right. Listen, the targets have been there for the top 2 wide receivers. So, to a lesser extent, but maybe building up that way. We always talk like, well, you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So you have, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You can always play one of these 2 wide receivers. They'll go off. Quarterback elevates the play of these wide receivers. And if Stroud's that dude, then Nico Collins and Tank Dell can both be successful here on a week-to-week basis. So those are kind of the 4 quarterbacks I kind of centered myself around this week. I threw Jared Goff in the quarterback coach as well this week. I don't find him to be overly sexy, but if New Orleans is still a little bit banged up, they have the weapons obviously to throw the football. He threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns against Green Bay on Thanksgiving here. Generally like him more at home than on the road, but it's still a dome game. So for another mid-tier option on kind of because again, 10-game slate. The player pool for me is kind of shrunk. It's kind of where I sat. Was there any other quarterbacks that you found yourself kind of finding yourself putting in lineups this week?
You know what? I do like Purdy.
Okay.
Listen, I like Hurts and I like Purdy. Everybody's like, should I sit Hurts? Should I sit? No, you don't sit.
No, you don't sit Hurts.
You don't ever sit Hurts. In DFS, I might look to do a little bit of a contrarian lineup and get Hurts in there, but I do like Brock Purdy. I think he's in a fantastic spot. Jared Goff potentially on the road. I know it's not as great, but it is a climate controlled environment, and the Saints are dealing with a number of injuries there. Surprised that you didn't chime in with Baker Mayfield here, John, going up against the Carolina Panthers, a team that's in complete disarray.
Yeah, I don't have Baker in the quarterback coach this week. I actually kind of liked the running back situation. Rachaad White coming off of a 100-yard game. You can run on Carolina here. I think Baker's always kind of in play if you wanted to go down there. I like Mike Evans again this week if you wanted to go in that direction. Tampa Bay is home, so sure. If you wanted to get to Baker, that's fine. Again, I didn't get to Baker in the quarterback coach this week. I talked to you about this last week because I was in on Baker Mayfield. He twice had wide receivers tackled at the 1. Yeah. We were very close to a huge Baker Mayfield game. He even got hurt after the Mike Evans down at the 1. He went for the QB tush push, didn't get in, turned his ankle, and then they had to bring in Trask, who couldn't score the touchdown, ended up having to settle for the field goal there. So we were very close to a monster Baker Mayfield day. Instead, we got a mediocre Baker Mayfield day. I think Gardner Minshew could be a spot here this week. Going up against Tennessee, no Jonathan Taylor. Zach Moss obviously is a very capable running back, as we saw this year. But Zach Moss also was making a lot of plays in the passing game. Michael Pittman came through for us last week. Downs has been an effective receiver. You throw the ball against Tennessee, can't really run the ball against them all that well. So I do think Gardner Minshew this week is a bit more in play. I kind of wrote up, the Minshew mania certainly lost its luster now that we've gotten a full season of what Gardner Minshew can be. He looks great in those spot starts, Howard. He comes in for a game like, this guy could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Well, we've now seen him as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and it's not really great for a full season, but I think certain selective matchups, he can be good. And I'm willing to give him a run here this week at $5,300.
Yeah, Tennessee secondary is super soft. We know that. And, no Jonathan Taylor. Yes, Zach Moss is a decent fill-in, but still, is that going to inspire Gardner Minshew not only to run one in on his own, but to do a little bit more throwing? The only other QB who I've got listed in the watch list that I'm curious as to your thoughts, and that's Kenny Pickett. Because, listen, we know we don't like Kenny Pickett. But we also know that Kenny Pickett last week had a 72.5% completion rate. They're focusing more on these short, high percentage passes to Freiermuth, to Deontay Johnson. Yes, that will open up some deeper shots to George Pickens, but the efficiency with which Kenny Pickett threw with last week, knowing that he does have these targets, knowing that Arizona, I mean, this is a team that gives up a ton of fantasy points to everybody, right? I mean, yes, you can always run on them, and I love Najee Harris and or Jalen Warren as a possible, GPP running back play. But I also kind of think that this is the perfect opponent for Tomlin, Faulkner, and Sullivan, the new, Tomlin's new regime, to really kind of help Kenny Pickett along, build off of that completion percentage momentum, and use this game as a get-right game. Not to mention the fact, if Kyler Murray does have some success, even a modicum of success against this Steelers defense at home, well, then Kenny Pickett might have to throw a little bit more often as well. So he's the only guy who I'm on the fence with. I don't like the player. I'm just kind of intrigued by the situation.
Yeah. Also included him in the quarterback coach with like a very large sort of like warning sign. My problem really is what you just said. Arizona is as bad against the run as they are against the pass. And I don't know if you've seen the box scores here for Kenny Pickett, but I think this 2-touchdown game might be his only 2-touchdown passing game of his career. He does not throw for a lot of touchdown passes. He threw for 278 yards, completed 73% of his passes, and he had 0 passing touchdowns in that game.
But here we go. Think about this. Like, look at the Arizona Cardinals box scores, right? Stafford threw for 3 touchdowns on them this past week. Even though it was all Kyren Williams, Stafford still found his way into 2 touchdowns. Stroud the week before that, multiple touchdowns, even though we knew Devin Singletary was going to have himself a big game against the Falcons, right? I mean, even though, we knew it's all about Bijan Robinson and whatnot.
It should have been.
It should have been. But you still had Taylor Heineke, throwing a touchdown pass. It wasn't great. It's Heineke, but I mean, I think Ritter played in that one also. Neither one of them were great, but neither one of them threw a pick. Heineke was only sacked 3 times. Like, that's the thing, is that Arizona still gives up. Yeah, you want to run against them, but they still give up that passing work plenty.
Yeah, again, I have them in there because because of the yardage, and I was intrigued by the efficiency there. I just worry that even if they do get down into that red zone, not the way Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are running the ball right now. That there's going to be a heavy dose. And I wanted to get to the quarter. We'll get to the running back's position now, since we don't really have any other ones to talk about. Looking at this matchup for Pittsburgh against Arizona here, Najee Harris is $5,200 coming off of 15 for 99 in a score. Jalen Warren, obviously 13 for 49, didn't get in that end zone like we needed him to. Would you be opposed to double playing the Steelers running backs in this situation?
I wouldn't be opposed to it in a cash game situation. I think you're limiting your upside in a GPP tournament.
Sure.
I mean, because again, I'm not going to just completely dismiss Kenny Pickett and just think that they're going to run it constantly. However, if I'm sitting in a GPP in a cash game situation, like especially on FanDuel, where half-point PPR, then I would probably look at the 2 of them together, because I don't think either one of them is priced up too high.
They're not 52 and 54, because this Green Bay game is kind of the ideal situation. Najee goes 16 for 82 rushes for a touchdown, and then Jalen Warren does it himself here, 15 for 101 in a score. They both go for 20 fantasy points. Again, I feel like somebody's going to be disappointed here this week when it comes to that game, because I still don't see the Steelers going out and scoring 35 points here. If they go out and score 3 touchdowns, people are going to be playing the passing game. People are going to be playing the running game. I think somebody's going to come out of that one disappointed with the way it kind of breaks itself down. Looking more so at the top of the running back position here, we have McCaffrey, Eckler, Kamara up over $8,000. I haven't gotten to any of those running backs yet in lineup builds. How are you feeling about the top 3 backs?
It's really kind of funny. I'm not doing a lot of paying up for that either. It's a tough matchup for McCaffrey, even though McCaffrey's going to produce. It's a tough matchup for him. Eckler against the Patriots, you just whether Belichick's got the personnel or not, you worry about him just being laser focused on making sure that Eckler and Keenan Allen are as neutralized as possible. Right. Kamara, I just have no interest in Kamara anyway. Like none at all, because of obviously, the wide receivers are banged up. That's going to put Taysom Hill on the field more. It always does, right? No Michael Thomas. Olave's concussed. Shaheed is banged up with a quad injury. I'm sure you got A.T. Perry and Jawan Johnson. I mean, no. So no Kamara for me. No Kyron Williams for me either. I'm not running up against this Cleveland defense.
Yeah.
There's no reason. To me, there's no reason to spend a whole lot of money here. I think where I'm looking at the most expensive running back is the cover boy of this week's watch list. Whether or not Arthur Smith screws us or not, I like Bijan Robinson against this Jets defense.
Okay.
I like Derrick Henry too.
I was going to say, for me, Derrick Henry was the first running back that I threw in my lineups this week. Momentum building game, hopefully last week against Tennessee. Two rushing touchdowns, 76 yards on the ground, 18 carries. Said Carolina sort of just completely flipping their whole team now over. And I think Tennessee knows, like, listen, we need to win these football games. These are important football games to win. Let's ride Derrick Henry. Let's take the ball and decision here out of the rookie.
Yeah, but see, they didn't do it this past week. Like, I know that he finished with 18 carries.
Yeah.
He had 13 at the end of the first half.
They
gave him the ball 5 times in the second half, dude. Like, why are and I legit was like, I was going out of my freaking mind because I was like, dude, this is gonna be such a fucking smash game for Derrick Henry, right? And yes, he had the 2 touchdowns, but he only had 78 yards. He ran 13 times in the first half, and they only gave it to him 5 times in the second half. They didn't even run Tajay Spears. My big fear here is that the Titans aren't making the playoffs. They've got 7 losses already. They have to run the table outright in the AFC if they really want to compete, especially with the lead that the Jags have right now in the South. And so my big worry, my big concern is this a point where Mike Vrabel says, we're not really building our team around Derrick Henry anymore. He's on his way out. We know he's on his way out. We have to see what Will Levis is all about, and I worry, and it was so funny too, because I equated Will Levis as like, that 4 touchdown game that he came in as like, when your crack dealer's like coming over to you, he's like, yo, I got some new rock. You got to try this shit. It's so good. And then he just gives you like a little taste for free. And then what do? You're chasing that crack high over and over and over again. I think Vrabel's chasing the Will Levis 4 touchdown high and seeing if he's got something else in there. There's no other explanation for running like 4 3-and-outs in the second half in a game that you were already leading when we know you're all about running the football. Well, that makes me nervous.
That's sort of my thing here. If you go look at the second half of that game, they only had 4 possessions. Carolina killed a ton of that clock. And then you go look, it was actually the fourth quarter, 5 minutes to go. They gave the ball 5 times to Derrick Henry to close out that game. They punted. Bryce Young went free and out, and then Will Levis took kneels. So they honestly didn't have a ton of second half possessions if you just go look at the box.
No, but he went 25 minutes without touching the football in the second half.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They pretty much gave him, I'm looking at the box score here. He had 1 carry in the third quarter because they only had 1 possession in the third quarter. Carolina got the ball to open the third and ran it all the way down to the 8-minute mark. And then Tennessee got the ball, had 8 plays, and then they punted, and then Carolina ran the whole clock out in the third quarter. So
I totally understand all of that. But if you're running 8 plays on a drive, why are you only handing the ball off to Derrick Henry once?
Well, that was just in the third quarter. But I agree with you. That's totally, I get what you're saying 100%. I'm just saying the next time they got the ball back, he had 5 carries. So
that was 5 minutes left in the game.
Well, that's because Carolina's offense ran the clock down. I mean, that's not Tennessee out there just throwing.
No, but they should have. They should have just run the clock out. Like, you can't sit there on an 8-play drive when you've got a 7-point lead against a tomato can defense like Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a concern of mine.
Okay.
We don't have to belabor the point here. it is just a concern of mine. Listen, I have Derrick Henry in the watch list, and I'm in on Derrick Henry because the Colts run defense is trash, and no Shaq Leonard makes a big difference.
100%. I agree with you there. Again, I was just more so when I looking at the play-by-play there on the situation for that. But Bijan is interesting to me because like they are using him finally, and we know the talent that he is, and he made that ridiculous touchdown catch. Obviously, know the runnings there. What is it about the Jets defense now that obviously they're struggling against the run here? Because earlier in the year you couldn't really run or throw against them. What's been the change on New York here?
I mean, just wear and tear. It's what happens to a defense. I mean, it was a great secondary. It is a great secondary with a mid-level run D. But you can't sit there and run a whole mess of 3 and outs and keep your defense on the field for 20 out of 25 possible minutes and expect this defense to hold up. So they have been struggling a little bit against the run. Not even a little bit. They've been struggling a lot against the run right now. And that's because, but what's kind of funny is that, you wonder, does Robert Saleh sell out to stop the run and let his secondary handle Desmond Ridder? That's the question that I have, but I'm in on Bijan because of his work in that passing game. Sure. It's going to be very interesting to see how they match up there. I could definitely see, you know what, and it's scary. I posted my picks in the confidence pool. I could see the Jets winning this game at home because Arthur Smith is a freaking turd.
And that would be a stretch. If the Fighting Tim Boyles go out there and beat Atlanta, then Arthur Smith deserves to be fired, probably on the spot, to be honest with you there. And he won't care because he's a billionaire. So what does that matter? His dad founded FedEx. He doesn't need a job. He's just I said this on the Quick Out Show. Us here are playing fantasy football, managing a team. He elevated the stakes. He's like, yeah, fantasy football doesn't do it for me. I'm just going to go coach an actual football team. Like, that's what I'm going to do with my billions and move on from there. Again, I mentioned I like Rachaad White a lot this week.
Yep.
Coming off the 100-yard rushing game, I know Tampa Bay hasn't been a good team generally running the football efficiency-wise. The offensive line hasn't been all that good, but he does make plays in the passing game, is coming off a 100-yard rushing game, and we know you run all over Carolina. So I'm been on Rachaad White here, who's been a pretty pleasant surprise because, again, the rushing hasn't been great, but he's been a stellar fantasy play in PPR format. You were right on Ramondre Stevenson last week. Another 21 carries. Bailey Zappi, now the quarterback in New England. I don't think that does anything for for the Patriots offense. But I mean, Mac Jones was, I likened him to like Chuck Knobloch. I likened him to, Rick Ankiel a little bit. I think Mac Jones just didn't have the confidence to throw a football anymore with some of the plays that he was making, and being close to that situation in Boston. You have a lot of the team beat writers and reporters you follow, and they're breaking down tape. And there are times where guys are literally wide open in Mac Jones's face, and he is just not throwing the football. And that was causing a lot of problems for the Patriots. Now, Bailey Zappi's going to come in. Hasn't looked much better when he's had those spot starts, but if he's going to start from the beginning, maybe things change a little bit for that Patriots offense. They're home. New life under Zappi a little bit, but you gotta love back-to-back 20+ carry games.
You're so cute with your Patriots breakdown and that glimmer of hope. I feel like that glimmer of hope that you have it's very similar to the Jets fans who are holding out hope that Aaron Rodgers is going to come back.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think the Patriots are winning this game, but I think for the Ramondre Stevenson play, if they get any sort of improved quarterback play to help move the ball down the field a little bit, then there's touchdown upside here potentially for Ramondre Stevenson.
I think it's irrelevant against the Chargers. The Chargers have a soft run defense anyway. I think as long as you're giving Ramondre Stevenson 20 carries, he's a play. He's definitely in. Can bust out a touchdown run if he wants. Doesn't always have to be inside the 5-yard line. I've seen him run for 15-yard touchdown.
And what took so long, by the way, New England?
What's that?
Was it really Ezekiel Elliott back there holding you back from giving Ramondre Stevenson 20 carries? Is that what took so long? Like what held Belichick back from giving this workload to Stevenson after the year that he had. Certainly have some questions to there. Coop said he was out on Devin Singletary this week. What are your thoughts here? Because he did get 6 catches in that game against Jacksonville, who we know give up catches to everybody, and they're tough against the run. Denver's not really good against the run. Are you worried about Pierce? Like, what's your thoughts on Singletary this week?
I mean, they did split. I mean, again, it's very similar to the Najee Harris, Jalen Warren situation, right? Jalen Warren had 1 fewer carry than Najee Harris, but he had 3 catches.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're looking at that with Singletary as well. And the question is, like he and Dameon Pierce split the workload pretty evenly, except for the fact that Singletary was utilized in the passing game. And that, and they, and what's his face wasn't.
Right.
So there is a split here. I guess the real question is do we think that Houston is going to need to check it down to the running back often in this game? Are they going to be in a pass first kind of a mode, or are they just going to let Stroud kind of like look downfield and test it against this reasonably strong Denver secondary? I'm not out on Devin Singletary. He's just not a favorite of mine this week.
Okay. Yeah, and again, the pass work for me, and one thing we've talked a lot about with Dameon Pierce is the reason that we all felt they brought Singletary in was because he can't pass block. And this is a game where Houston had to throw the ball a lot. They were playing from behind at times, and they probably needed Singletary out there on those passing downs there. So, I'm kind of in agreement with you. Javonte Williams sitting here at $5,700. So he keeps getting some decent workload, attacking Houston. Then we get the Steelers running backs down here. Any other guys that we haven't discussed yet? Moss obviously is 46. Do you think there's a lot of chalk going in that direction this week?
I think that, it's kind of funny. I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of chalk at $4,600. That inspires me to use Zach Moss in a cash game situation. We'll have to look at what the ownership projections look like. But that like as soon as a guy goes down and you get a cheaper alternative in there, the masses flock to it. The lineup optimizers flock to it. So regardless of the fact that it's not a great matchup against the Tennessee run defense, they probably will still flock to it. I won't even think about Zach Moss in a GPP tournament, but I'll look at his ownership percentages and see if I can get away with using a $4,600 running back in a cash game situation. So,
what's funny is the outlier game against Tennessee was with Zach Moss, 23 for 165.
Right.
They've been still good against the run. Actually, he did it against Baltimore too, another team that's really good against the run, 30 for 122. So
people are going to lap that up, man.
Yeah, because I'm sure going into that matchup against Tennessee there in Week 5, it's like, well, you can't really run on Tennessee here, so we're gonna go Gardner Minshew or Anthony Richardson, whoever it was, and then Moss goes out there 23 for 165, gangbusters. So. I'm trying to see where we have. Yes, he is the current highest projected running back. Current highest projected player on the slate, almost 40% right now. Early look getting Zach Moss in their lineups here, Howard.
What a shock! I'm stunned.
Not surprised.
Mindless sheep, John. Mindless sheep.
Wide receivers here. Your highest rostered wide receiver this week is none other than Tyreek Hill, $9,600, which makes sense because if you're getting a $4,600 running back in your lineup,
then you're getting
a $9,600 wide receiver.
He's $10,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean for good reason. Good reason.
Absolutely. He does have a bum ankle, and then the question is does Mike McDaniel say, well, I mean, listen, it's fucking Washington. Like
he got hurt against the Jets, and he came back and still torched them. So we'll see. But I'm with you. I agree with you there. What happened to AJ Brown? The man was setting records, and then all of a sudden he's just like nowhere to be found.
Right. Still been a little quiet. It's okay. Listen, because teams are focusing in on him. San Francisco secondary is not that great. I wouldn't mind using AJ Brown. I like I said, I think, you could build something with the Eagles. If we can find enough value, I think we can build something with the Eagles that's going to be a little bit more of a contrarian situation, because I definitely think that a lot more people are going to be on the 49ers. I bet you see a ton of Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel in lineups just because that Eagles secondary has been getting shredded over the last couple of weeks. So I'm not going to dismiss AJ Brown just because he's going up against the Niners.
No, I agree. And I did mention we didn't really go in depth on Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position, but he's certainly very much in play here. this week. He's just expensive. He's the most expensive quarterback on the slate, and his wide receivers aren't all that cheap. Devonta Smith's down here at $7,300. Mike Evans, as I mentioned, always a guy I'm throwing in lineups.
Why are you skipping right past Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Well, because I like Mike Evans.
Bubala, please. Amon-Ra running 57% of his snaps out of the slot.
I know, Monte Taylor.
Matches him up against Alontae Taylor. And there's no Marshawn Lattimore on the outside. That dude's on IR. Like Adebo, or I don't even know who the other guy is, but there's like Amon-Ra. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to really see a ton of volume this week.
Well, then you'll love the rostership on him because nobody is playing him this week.
Oh, I love that so much. So
that's fine. Again, no arguments here against Amon-Ra St. Brown. You just get $800 cheaper Mike Evans going up against Carolina here. He had 2 touchdowns. He could have had 3, and he was tackled at the 1. Mike Evans doing what Mike Evans does. He's not going to have the catches, but he'll have 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns this year. And then he'll leave Tampa Bay and go somewhere else probably next year. Jalen Waddle 76. Obviously, if Tyreek Hill's ankle ends up being a real problem, monster game out of Jalen Waddle there last week going against the Jets. 8 of 8. I mean, geez, big production there. Tank, Devonta, all in play. Michael Pittman. Are you Ayuk or Debo this week?
I'm probably more Ayuk than Debo this week.
Okay.
I do gotta shout out to Michael Pittman, dude.
Yeah.
Like gets the work, catches the ball, contested catches, sideline catches.
Just couldn't get the end zone for us.
Could not get in the end zone for us, but still, I mean, when you're getting 10 catches for 100 yards?
Yeah.
Like I'll take that. Give me that 100-yard bonus. Give me the 10 points just off catches alone. That's money in the bank for Pittman. So I dig that.
He's my highest rostered wide receiver and underdog this year because he was going in like the 7th round, and everybody's like, Anthony Richardson can't throw the football, and I was like, well, Michael Pittman's still not that bad of a wide receiver, and well on his way to exceeding value there. So,
dude, in drafts, I was like sitting there, I'm like crossing names off the cheat sheet, and I'm sitting there in like the 7th and 8th round. I'm like, how the hell is Michael Pittman still available right now?
Nobody was taking him. I mean, Mike Evans is the same way. Everybody was so afraid of Baker Mayfield, and nobody was drafting Evans there. You could have gotten Pittman and Evans in the middle rounds there and be.
I was worried about Evans though. Like I thought that Baker was going to focus a lot more on Godwin because I thought that Dave Canales was going to promote more of like the short passing than the deeper shots. Meanwhile, Baker's like, screw that, man. I got Mike Evans here.
Mike Evans down there somewhere. Mid-tier guys. The price on Puka Nacua continues to drop, but I'm not going there against Cleveland. You mentioned Nico Collins.
Yep.
Adam Thielen price dump. Any interest in Thielen here? Cheapest he's been since week 8.
In a GPP tournament, I will look at Adam Thielen, but again, it's such a hot mess in Carolina. I just don't even know. Chris Tabor is like their new coach, their interim coach. I just don't even know how the players are really going to respond to what we've got right now in Carolina. So Thielen to me would be a good contrarian pick because nobody's going to use him.
Yeah.
But I do like the discount. But I
love Pepper throwing the entire organization under the bus there. It's like, sir, you're the one that's making all these decisions. Like you're the reason that they drafted Bryce Young, not over CJ Stroud. So let's not pretend that was somebody else there. Other guys down in the mid tier. Anybody jumping off to you? I mentioned McLaurin already. Super cheap if you want to get on these Washington players against Miami in a stack coming back. I think those guys are in play. Cortland Sutton, as I mentioned, I know he's a big fan of ours here on the show and yours especially. Touchdown streak ended against Cleveland, but still gave you 3 for 61. So
dude's caught 8 touchdowns in 11 games this season.
I know, kind of a disappointment, right?
Listen, I think Garrett Wilson makes for an interesting contrarian play, even though he's only 6,000. He's like a $7,500 player. He's a $7,200 player. And Atlanta's exposed across the middle constantly. And so Wilson will end up hitting it over there. Sutton, yes. Downs, yes. Deontay Johnson, I think, is in play here, especially in a full point PPR format. All right. So I don't hate on that. But then I'm like, then all of a sudden you kind of look down and you got to find like the real bargain guys. Like, who are we in on as far as these real bargain plays? Is it Greg Dortch or is it Rondell Moore? Is Michael Wilson going to play? Because if it's Rondell Moore working out of the slot, that's a huge hole for this Pittsburgh team. And I think that that he could be a guy. Like, I would be looking at Rondell Moore or Greg Dortch.
Yeah,
as our little salary saver.
I would prefer Dortch over Moore. I know it didn't really work last week. He did catch that touchdown, garbage time, and it was actually a very impressive catch. I don't know if you ever saw the highlight of that, Howard, but basically had one arm tied up. He caught it on his hip, basically. So happy it happened. We'll always remember that. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have a ton of value. I think Robert Woods at 39 is fine. Quentin Johnston's going to play, right? I mean, it's Patriots secondary, if you want to take a shot on that.
I'd be intrigued in A.T. Perry. I think that Detroit is vulnerable to the pass, and Perry is a guy who has both the speed to stretch the field vertically. He's also got the physicality to go up and get some contested catches. So I kind of like him. No, you're on Devontae Parker. I'm talking about A.T. Perry. Don't be jumping ahead to your stinking Patriot love, dude. You're so gross. You're so grimy.
Just saying.
I don't know how your wife sleeps in the same bed as you. Oh, she's a Patriots fan too. There you go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, A.T. Perry's fine. I don't care. It's fine. They have nobody. They have nobody.
So if he's going to see 8 to 10 targets in this game, I think it's worth noting at $3,300.
They're just going to use Adam Thielen at wide receiver. We both know that. Not Adam Thielen. Taysom Hill at wide receiver. We both know that's what's going to happen there. Jalen Guyton had 5 targets. He only hauled in 1 last week, but he's had 11 targets in the last 2 games he's been active for. Like you mentioned, they're just not in on Quentin Johnston. I only mentioned Devontae Parker again because he did have 5 targets in that game. He came back, first game back since the concussion he suffered in week 8. And if Demario Douglas is out, Devontae Parker is the number 1 wide receiver on this team, and they're just never know. You never know what's going to happen with the Patriots passing offense. Curtis Samuel's 41. There isn't as much value down here as we've talked about in the past. Mingo was in the coach last week, 4 catches, 6 targets. Any Jonathan Mingo interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna have to kind of wait and see what's going on. I can't put any kind of like I said, if I'm not gonna trust Adam Thielen, then what the hell am I gonna trust Mingo for? Like,
they did just put Laviska Shenault on IR today. Now that is a huge
doesn't like that doesn't move the needle. Like, again, what we're looking for is, if we're looking down here, then we have to look at guys who are gonna get targets, and it's not just like hey, this dude saw 5 targets last week. He caught 1 pass, and maybe he's going to be that guy. I want somebody like, that's why I'm saying Rondell Moore and Greg Dortch, depending on what Michael Wilson's status is, those 2 guys definitely move the needle in that situation. Curtis Samuel at 4,100, he moves the needle. A.T. Perry, listen, if Derek Carr is going to throw it 25 to 30 times in this game, it's not all Taysom Hill, and it's not all Juwan Johnson.
So this is where the field's getting this week, Howard.
What are they doing?
Elijah
Moore. Yeah. Coop was talking about him a little bit last week or the other day, I think.
This is your top rostered value wide receiver. The target share is nice.
Listen, if Joe Flacco is the quarterback,
right?
Maybe.
All right.
Maybe.
The targets are there. No doubt about it. Rams are better. At Baltimore, Pittsburgh, at Denver is not the greatest run, but maybe the Rams are a bit softer. So you've been on Elijah Moore a few times this year. So.
I've been on Elijah Moore a few times this year when Deshaun Watson was throwing the football.
Was Deshaun Watson better than the quarterback play they've had so far this year?
No, I can't say that it has been, but listen.
I hear you.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
I agree. All right, tight end position here. Kittle, Laporta, Taysom is your top 3 price guys here. We've been attacking the middle of the field against Philly all season long. Is this a Kittle week?
Yeah, listen, Kevin Byard has come in, and he did a good job this past week against Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid had 5 catches, but it was only for 38 yards. Kelsey the week before, 44 yards, but he did get into the end zone. So when I look at George Kittle in this situation, yeah, I like George Kittle. If I'm paying up for, if I can afford $6,200 for a tight end, right, I'll take a look at it because, I kind of expect that this game could go back and forth, similar, to what the Buffalo game was for the Eagles. So Kittle gets that look. Laporta obviously gets the look. If you want to do that, I don't, even without any receivers, I have a hard time thinking about Taysom Hill. I'd rather go Dalton Schultz, Trey McBride in their situations as cheaper, alternatives.
Sure. 2 catches, 7 carries. They might have to utilize him a bit more there. Your top rostered currently tight end is David Njoku.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's there. Everybody's in on David Njoku and Elijah Moore because they think that it's going to be Joe Flacco under center right now.
Oh, even so, 15 targets with DTR, 9 targets with the DTR Walker combo, 9 with Walker here. They just
listen. You don't have to sell Njoku to me. Look at him. Look at that picture. He is a beautiful specimen. Like, when you look at like DK Metcalf and you're like, wow, that dude is just cut and ripped. Go look at David Njoku because he is equally cut, equally ripped. Yeah, look at him. He's so handsome. He's such a handsome guy.
His early career problems were just the drops. It was never the physical attributes. He just could not hold on to the football. And even last week, Howard, I'm sure you saw the highlights. He dropped the touchdown. He dropped another very easy catch for himself there. Could have been a monster day for David Njoku. Pat Freiermuth did have the monster day. Tight end 1 last week at $2,900, all the way up to $4,300 here now. 9 for 11 for 120. Now, you've been saying all season long, Cincinnati secondary, they don't have the safeties. Now, we're 13 weeks in. I would hope that they've had that continuity a little bit more, but they have changed that defense. They still can't stop the pass. Is it more so the matchup that had him go off, or is the new offense? Where are you on Pat Freiermuth this week? Because all 3 pass catches for Pittsburgh, very inexpensive. Pickens is under 5K. Deontay's at the 51, I think we saw, and Freiermuth here at 43.
Well, again, it's a great matchup against Arizona. And if you want Kenny Pickett to maintain this, high completion percentage, you have to shorten up those routes and you have to go with quick, high percentage passes. So to me, that does scream Pat Freiermuth once again. I love him. I'll put him into lineups. I won't have any issues, doing that whatsoever. So I'm in on Freiermuth 100%. And I think that's probably, I know you could go Jawan. Listen, I'm not touching Kyle Pitts. Screw him. I don't care how bad the Jets defense can be against the tight end. If that's the case, then roster Jonnu Smith because Kyle Pitts is running all of his work out of the slot and they're lining him up wide. And I'm done with Pitts.
Well, I wonder what the snap share was for Jonnu because he didn't have any catches last week.
I'll tell you right now for the Atlanta Falcons.
And Pitts only had 2 targets as well, so they just didn't do anything.
Jonnu Smith played a 35% snap share to 50% for Kyle Pitts. Okay. Michael Pruitt. Here you go. Parker Hess and Michael Pruitt. Pruitt had a 26% snap share. Hess had a 37% snap share. These guys don't play at all. This was Arthur Smith saying these guys had a better matchup.
Yeah, they ran the ball, right? So they had the 2 blocking tight ends out there.
Terrible.
Makes sense. Kate Otten been pretty decent. Yeah. Logan Thomas is is the 3rd highest roster tight end this week. $3,600 going against Miami. Maybe there's some interest there in a shootout. Again, high game total in that one, so you're just getting exposure to anybody that might catch a football seemingly in that game. I'll mention Hunter Henry because Patriots. Anything else for you down here?
I'll mention Hunter Henry because of the Patriots. Nope.
It's a revenge game against the Chargers.
Tyler Conklin, $3,000 against the Falcons, who give up the middle of the field on a constant basis, and Conklin's getting 6-7 targets a game. How about that?
I don't mind it. Some people are playing Chick again. I don't know if I'm getting a Conquo, but rostership's been there. All right, let's go to our defense. Chargers are your top price defense, which is hilarious because they've been abysmal. But I mean, Bailey Zappi is just as turnover prone as Mac Jones has been this year. So you always say chase the touchdown, chase the defensive touchdown.
No. I say that's what everybody does is chase the touchdown. I don't chase the touchdown. I'm of the mindset right now where it's pick whatever freaking defense gives you like correlation if you want, or that just fits your build.
So we're going Pittsburgh then.
What's that?
So we're going to go Pittsburgh this week?
I'm fine going Pittsburgh this week. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm totally fine going with Pittsburgh. I think that, listen, I think the Steelers defense is in play. I think the Falcons defense is in play. You know, no Shaq Leonard, but with Will Levis out there, give me the Colts. That defense has actually turned out some pretty good point totals and turnover numbers over the last few weeks of the season. And then the Buccaneers going up against Carolina, a game that's like, a team that's just so lost right now. I think that the Bucs are also in play.
Would you bounce back against the Lions here at all?
Lions against the Saints, yeah, I think that's fine too. Again, I mean, listen, it's whatever fits your build, and if that's if you can, if you don't have to spend more than $3,000 on DK for a defense, well then serve it up, man.
That game has to me a surprising 46.5 game total for a Saints offense that has nobody.
I know.
It seems high. Let's see. I guess Atlanta would be a good defense. They the second highest price for Atlanta here. 3,400 for Atlanta against the Jets.
Yeah, I mentioned them.
That's a 34 game total on that one. Jets are right there at 35. What are some of the other cheap game totals down here? Carolina, Tampa Bay is 36.5. Cleveland, LA 39. That's it for games under 40. So, yeah, we'll see. Let's see what the roster is getting to. Our top roster projected defense here is Atlanta. Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Those are your top two.
Yeah, I'm fine with Tampa Bay. I'm okay with Atlanta. I'm going to go on this whole Jets are going to upset the Falcons because Arthur Smith is a dipshit.
I mean, we can play that way, I guess. Are they your defense then? Are they your defense for your lineup?
No. You want to plug a defense in there right now?
Sure.
Huh? Go ahead. Put the Bucks in there.
Okay. What's your quarterback?
Sammy Howell. Raheem Mostert. Rashad White.
Okay.
Let's get our Washington stack in there. Get McLaurin and Curtis Samuel.
You're doubling up the wide receivers. You sob. Where is he? 41? Where is 41? Okay.
All right. I'm going to assume that Michael Wilson is going to play, or that they're going to put Greg Dortch on the outside if Michael Wilson is out. And so give me Rondale Moore at 3,400.
Okay.
My tight end, I get some correlation here with Pat Freiermuth. And that leaves me a little one-off here. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay.
I mean, it's 800 to play with if you guys want to kind of make some adjustments here and there. Doesn't matter who you want to go with. You could probably, you could pay up a little bit more for Dortch instead of Moore if you wanted to. You could also, instead of going full stack for Washington, put some extra money on top of a Curtis Samuel guy.
Yeah, I did this.
You double tight end with David Njoku.
I trust David Njoku way more than I trust Rondale Moore.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement for sure.
$100 left over there, and if you want to play around with some defenses, you can certainly get some other exposure to these games here. You could make it happen. I don't mind it. I don't mind the double tap there. Again, I like the lineup build. I don't know if Mostert's where I want to go personally. I know the numbers been pretty great. I feel like if Tyreek's in, I want Tyreek, I think, in this spot. But I like it. I like the line. Any final thoughts here, Howard?
I don't have any final thoughts, John. I think I'm good with where we're at right now. Now we're recording this, so everybody knows we're recording this on Thursday morning. Yep. So as always, double check the news, look for updates in the playbook and the coaching articles as well. Check out Britt Flynn's matchup report when that comes out. So make sure you're checking out all the content because things could change between practice here on Thursday and practice on Friday. Last week, we got the scare with Rachaad White. So always be in tune with what's going on around the way. But other than that, John, I think we're in a good spot here.
I agree with you. We'll have the playbook and dartboard out for everybody Saturday. Sunday, tune into the live stream, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Myself and Bridge Flynn, 10 to 11. Go check out Howard Bender and Andrew Cooper on SiriusXM. And then myself and Andrew Cooper from 11 to 12, getting you guys ready for all your Week 13 action. Good luck, everybody. We'll catch you later.